There's something also we refer to as polarization, a cognitive polarization, meaning that you will drive this person nuts and she will drive you nuts.
Right.
If you don't understand your strengths and your weaknesses. Like, we're together for a reason. We're different. And I know that I'm going to get on your nerves sometimes.
Yes.
And, she's anal about a lot of the things that she does also.
Put that coffee down.
Creators are leaders. Be careful what kind of leaders you're producing here.
Helen, we're both in sales. Let me tell you why I suck as a salesman.
They realized that to be in power, you didn't need guns or money or even numbers. You just needed the will to do what the other guy wouldn't.
I'm not leaving. The show goes on.
Well, hello there, friend. Welcome to the Construction Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Bradley Hartman. And on this podcast, we deliver ideas and insights from leaders across the construction industry every single week to help you lead more effectively. I would like to thank our presenting sponsor, Capital One Trade Credit. How does Capital One Trade Credit help you? Well, number one, they have a very flexible, adaptable, customizable platform that makes it easier for you to grow sales. That's great. What about your customers? Thank you. Thanks for asking. You got to think about your customers. You get to delight your customers. That's right. Beyond satisfy, well beyond. You're going to delight them. You can modernize your customer experience with tech-enabled solutions through each customer touch point. Think about that. If we mapped out our touch points and if we've been really thoughtful and generous about how we make it easier for your customers, if not, well, Capital One Trade Credit might be a fit for you. So check it out, Capital One Trade Credit. All right, my friends, you are in for a treat today with this conversation with my friend, one of my mentors, and one of the truly most thoughtful and generous people in the business, Mr. Bill Lee. So Mr. Bill Lee, first and foremost, that is a first name and a last name, L-E-E, Bill Lee, right? He attended and graduated with a degree in clinical psychology from Emory University. Two parts there. Clinical psychology in the construction industry. Yeah, you'll do well here. We're trying to figure out why the hell people act the way they do all the time. That might be helpful. And Emory University in Atlanta, mascot is the Eagles. That's fine. I mean, I guess it's American, but it's kind of lame. But anyway, the Emory Eagles, that's where he graduated. He began his career in the roofing industry. He moved his way up quickly, became the corporate vice president, which he maintained for nearly 2 decades at BMA, Builder Marts of America. He was vice president for 5 years at Enterprise Computing System in the 80s. That's right. He was on the forefront of integrating technology in our industry in the 80s. And subsequently, he started his own company called Lee Resources, Inc., which is a business consultant and seminar leader specializing in the construction supply industry for the past 35 years. He's got 2 books. Gross Margin, 26 Factors Affecting Your Bottom Line, is mandatory reading. If you have a bookshelf, or check that, if you have a floor where you could just put a book that needs to be around you so you can learn from it, it needs to have Gross Margin, 26 Factors Affecting Your Bottom Line on it. I know some of the stories in there, they're a little dated. It doesn't matter. I don't even think it needs updating, ever. The principles are the same and it's required reading. So those are the specifics. What I will tell you is Bill Lee is the OG, the original LBM consultant. And there are so many people across the country that view Bill as I do, as a mentor, someone who's been really generous with their time and insights and wants to help others be successful. I believe he's the living embodiment of Zig Ziglar's quote that if you help other people get what they want, you can get anything that you want. He was a guest on episode 20, one of the original 20, of course, and episode 91 of this podcast where we go deeper into it. And he speaks Spanish fluently. He started a Mexican orphanage. Like, this is the guy he is. This is what he does. He raises money and builds an orphanage in Mexico to help other people. And you spend some time with him and you step back and you think, what the hell am I doing with my life? And I think he makes those around him better. My time spent around Bill, I have certainly tried to be better and help more people. This is the type of person Bill is. He makes you want to be a better human being. Now, specific to this conversation, I wanted to have Bill on for a very specific reason. I wanted to talk about the Kolbe Cognitive Index. That's a very specific thing. And Bill has 3 decades worth of psychological testing that allows his clients to take the guesswork out of predicting how new hires and other people are going to perform on the job. So the Kolbe Cognitive Index is something that we've been using for the past 6 years or so in our business, and increasingly I've been using it with clients, and it was included in the launch of our OSR Academy, the Outside Sales Rep Academy. So we had all the students go through and take this cognitive index. What does cognitive mean? It's basically an index of GSD. It's how you get stuff done. It's how you default to getting work done. So we have a better awareness of ourselves, how we interact with others, and what our strengths and weaknesses might be. So I believe strongly in this, and we have anyone that we are hiring early in that process, we have them go through this to get an understanding and have a conversation about that. So I wanted Bill to come in and give us a little context about how it works, how it's relevant, and how it might be helpful for you. So without further ado, I'm going to quit rambling here. I'm excited to share this conversation, as always, with my friend, the mentor to the industry, Mr. Bill Lee. As always, thank you for listening. So, Mr. Bill Lee, welcome to the show.
Nice to be here, Bradley.
Yeah, thrilled to see you. And I'm excited to talk to you about something that I've gotten a lot of value from and our team uses. And yet I think I know maybe 1% of what you know on this topic. And you've been doing this for quite literally decades. And I'm excited to learn more about you because I think this idea of kind of the Kolbe A index, or looking at how we get things done and how we build teams to maximize strengths and offset weaknesses, is just so critical. So let me just start at the top here. Maybe can you tell us just a little bit about what are the different methodologies or types of testing?
Well, you may remember, I told you this a long time ago, but I majored in psychology. And that's
Yes.
about all I brought to my industry was a little knowledge of psychology. There are 3 types of testing, psychological testing.
Okay.
The one that's been around for eons is cognitive testing, which is intelligence testing. It's relatively easy to do. The correlations are very high when you give a cognitive test. But it tells you how intelligent you are, how bright you are. Then came along testing, which are generically called personality tests.
Right.
But I call them affective indexes.
Okay.
They measure emotions, feelings, values, those kinds of things. If you would have a person who has an outgoing, gregarious personality, and then you would have a person that's an introvert, and you get opposites. And the correlations are very high also on affective indexes. But nobody had ever heard of cognitive testing.
Right.
I had a meeting with a psychologist friend of mine, and he started using words I'd never heard. And I took pride in keeping up with psychology and what was happening in that field. And I said, what are they? Where'd you get these words? And he says, well, it's Kathy Kolbe out in Scottsdale. And by the time our dinner was over, I had made a telephone call to get in one of her seminars because it was intriguing. But it's called, the noun is conation, Conation. And the test is called a cognitive index.
Okay.
It measures conation. And conation basically is the way we do things, how we go about doing whatever it is that we do. And Kathy Kolbe pioneered in this field. And incidentally, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Wonderlic intelligence test, But E.F. Wunderlich is Kathy Kolbe's father.
Yeah, I remember doing some research on this because as a fan of the NFL and the NFL draft, aka the Spandex Olympics, they always talk about the quarterbacks and keep them for, I think, for the last, I don't say 25 years, how every quarterback in the draft does in the Wunderlich test. And then in hindsight bias, we tie that into either support them or make fun of them. But yeah, absolutely. And I remember there being a, obviously, family tie that if you could come up with something valuable, there's a good business model there.
And they're both from your neck of the woods. They're from Chicago. Kathy Kolbe went to Northwestern and did her graduate work there. But at any rate, Kathy had this idea, and she used to debate with her father all the time about this other part of the mind that nobody had ever measured before. And he encouraged her to, if you believe that, you go out and you prove it, you make it happen. And she came up with this cognitive index, and she measures 4 characteristics, I'll call them.
Okay.
The first one is called Fact Finder, and Fact Finder is an instinct that we're all born with. That's our instinct to probe, to do research, to dig for information when we are trying to make a decision. And Fact Finder is something that you'll frequently find in a teacher or someone that has a doctorate or a master's degree. They love information. They thrive on information. They will do research till the cows come home. And they really enjoy talking about the information that they've gathered. Fact finders are important in corporations because they can make great decisions because they do so much research. The second measurement that she came up with was she calls follow through. And follow through is the instinct to pattern your behavior. Neatness, organization, everything in its place and a place for everything. And people that are strong in follow through are essential in any company that is trying to keep up with what they're doing. For example, in a building supply business, we have a dispatcher who has to keep up with the trucks and the deliveries and where are they going and when are they leaving and when are they coming back. And he has a board in his office usually where he keeps up with all this. And they have to be strong in follow through in order to be effective in that particular kind of work. Now, the opposite of all of these things, pretty obvious, is someone who's highly disorganized, someone who has to work extremely hard to keep up with. They lose things a lot. They spend a lot of their life looking for stuff that they've lost. But none of us are devoid of any of this talent.
Right.
Your scores usually add up to 20. You can't have less than 1, and you can't have more than 10.
Right.
So we're all over the place as far as individuals. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to have synergy in the company by measuring these characteristics and making sure that we don't have all resistant follow-throughs,
right?
But we have a good mix of insistent and resistant. The third area they call quick start. And quick start is the instinctive need or the talent to be innovative, to come up with neat ideas. Quick starts come up with most of the new ideas in the world. They brainstorm beautifully. If you get a group of guys in a room and you start brainstorming on what's another way we could do something, then the quick starts are going to be the most verbal, the most vocal, the ones to come up with the best ideas, typically. The opposite of that would be someone who is very, very conservative, very quiet. They're not innovative at all. They can take an idea that you come up with and do very nicely with it, but they're not going to come up with the idea themselves. Now, quick starts also love change. They thrive on change. Yeah. In fact, they need change. They have no problem with moving to a new city or to take a new job. They really enjoy a different environment. So quick starts are very important in organizations, just like all the other modes are. But quick starts combined with fact finders make a great team for having a building supply business. You've got someone taking care of the money, and you have somebody out there generating sales and coming up with ideas how we can outserve our competition. The fourth area is one of the most interesting to me. It's called implementer, and it comes from the word for an implement, a tool. And an implementer has almost brains in the ends of their fingers. They are masterful at working with their hands. They are really good with tools. A seamstress, a surgeon, a farmer, a guy that works on the door machine in the door shop.
Yeah.
They're masterful with their hands. And people like me, I have 3 units of implementer. That's resistant. That's the opposite of these guys. And I need to call a plumber when my plumbing breaks. I'm not very good with my hands. I try, but I can't seem to get it done.
I'm going to jump in here just real quick. So you've used the terms insistent and resistant. So is it if I'm low, say in follow through, which I'm a 3, more to follow there for sure, then I would essentially be somewhat resistant versus if I'm a 7, 8, 9, or 10, where I would be, that'd be vice versa. I'd be resistant to that. And then insistent, is that a high number?
Yeah, that's the numbers. A 1 to 3 is resistant.
Okay.
And then a 4 to 7 is what's called a facilitator, someone who's accommodating.
Got it.
They're not insistent or resistant. And 7 to 10 is insistent.
Okay.
So there's a numerical score to determine whether you're resistant or insistent or accommodating.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. And so we administered this for all the students in our OSR Academy, and we hired this wonderful person named Courtney, and she is an 8 in follow through, and I'm a 3 in follow through. And the big ideas, I like the big ideas. I want to get the ball rolling. I want to create it. I want to sell it. I want to get the ball rolling. And then I want to leave as fast as possible to kind of move on to the next thing. And someone has to be there to make sure all, the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And we were talking both about the idea of this in the program, but also about us as a team, about how her and I work together. And really it's on that collaboration, which she's great at, I'm weak at. And part of this is just this awareness and our discussion of it. So we're not driving each other crazy. And we're like, well, this is why I have a role. I need to offset this person's weakness and vice versa.
Well, you make a great point, because the difference between an 8 and a 3 is substantial.
Yes.
And there's something also we refer to as polarization, a cognitive polarization, meaning that you will drive this person nuts and she will drive you nuts.
Right.
If you don't understand your strengths and your weaknesses. Like, we're together for a reason. We're different. And I know that I'm going to get on your nerves sometimes.
Yes.
And, she's anal about a lot of the things that she does also.
Yeah.
So it's that knowledge and appreciating your uniqueness, your differences, because that's what we're trying to accomplish, is having a team that's synergistic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Bill, let me ask you, so you're a 5 for fact finder. You're a 5 for follow through. You're a 7 for quick start. So you're high in quick start, being a entrepreneur and a business owner. That's not surprising. And then you and I were 3 on implementer. And this helped me a little bit, where I'm handy enough. I can do enough stuff around the house. But when we have a new grill comes, my wife, who's high in implementer, she's a 7, she'll be the one who puts the grill together and does it faster. And she'll get annoyed if I try to fumble my way through it. So it's somewhat emasculating, but I've gotten over it, Bill. How would you describe yourself to someone else, if you said, hey, I'm a 5573, how would you introduce yourself, understanding or using the Kolbe index here as a framework?
Well, that's a good question. I would say my strength is in the area of quick start. I'm relatively innovative. I'm pretty good on my feet. I can ad lib very well. I come up with some really good ideas. However, a lot of those ideas never make it to fruition because I only have 5 units to follow through. And I mean, I have more ideas than I can possibly ever implement.
Right.
So I need someone to help me put these down on paper and let's analyze them, let's discuss them, and keep them in perspective. Uh, I just have all these, I think, really great ideas, and there's not enough hours in the day
Right.
to implement them all.
Yep.
So to build a synergistic team, I need to have someone who can take what I come up with and capture it and put it down on paper and analyze it and bring me in at some point and let's discuss it. Fact finder, that's another one. I'm accommodating. I'm better than a 3, 4, 2, 1, but I only have 5 units. In my university life, I graduated from college, but by the skin of my teeth. I mean, I was not the best student in school because I had to use personal discipline to force myself to study boring topics. Now, if it was something I was excited about, I had no problem.
Right.
I did really well in PE, but when it came down to something deep that took a lot of digging, I lost altitude in a hurry.
Well, you brought up a great point, Bill, and I thought about this, and I see that in myself as well, is you said, and even with a 5 and follow through, I can get organized, but I still have to work hard to stay organized. A program time management system is an absolute essential tool I'm never without. And I think it's these little things I find working with salespeople, as you have done for your career. It's really thinking about what are we using to organize and stay consistent, to be really intentional with our time. And I think you're a really good example, and that is really illustrative of that, is that I understand myself and I have another tool that helps me offset my weaknesses. And in some cases, I bet it's a strength of yours.
Yeah. Well, I remember in my corporate life, we had someone that came in our office and sold us on a time management system, and we all of us had to sign a pact that we were going to follow this thing.
Okay.
And the term they used was time activated. Anytime that you make a commitment, write it down and time activate. When am I going to do this? And it's a kind of a contract with yourself.
Yeah.
That this will get done. Now, you may decide that I don't have time to do that. It's not something I want to do or need to do, and you delegate it. But you don't just drop it. You either proactively drop it. I mean, you don't just put it over in a pile somewhere, but you assign it to someone else or you do it yourself. But it's time activated.
Yeah, that resonates with me because while I'm very disciplined and I'm diligent, kind of tracking my time, I still find myself identifying the things I need to do, yet they're not time activated. I'm not putting them in. So they're there, they're circling around and they're very visible, but they're not being time activated. So that certainly resonates. Let me ask you this, Bill. We've had this conversation internally and I kind of know where I settled, but it was more on gut feel. Say a company is trying to be thoughtful about building a team to maximize strengths and offset weaknesses. You have someone go through the hiring process as we do. So we pay I think it's $50 or whatever it is, to have this person, this candidate, take the Kolbe. How much weight would you recommend, or how much weight have you put on the scores that come back from the Kolbe test in your overall weighting to either hire or not hire a potential candidate?
Well, first of all, I don't use the Kolbe exclusively.
Mhm.
I believe in using an affective index,
Okay.
and we always use the DISC
You disc.
because I knew it, I'd been to school on it, and I found the correlations to be good. You know Jim Sobek well, and
Oh, yeah.
Jim Sobek swears by the Wonderlic.
Yes.
So he uses the Wonderlic, the Kolbe, and an affective index, and he's done a magnificent job of building a team. I put a lot of confidence in the psychological testing. If I feel like when you're interviewing someone, they have their best foot forward.
Right.
They're maybe the person that you interview is not the person that comes to work. You have to really spend a lot of time trying to analyze what am I really getting here. And we do it through psychological testing. We do it through reference checking. We do it through going to dinner with maybe the candidate and their spouse. We put them in different environments so that we can kind of decide what are we getting. And they should be doing the same thing with you.
Yeah.
You know, what are they getting? Because you've got your best foot forward too.
Sure.
If you're trying to recruit someone. What we always had was a system that we would follow, and we had 3 tests, and we always met the spouse.
Okay.
We always took the spouse to dinner with the candidate, and we did a lot of reference checking, and that's tougher and tougher to do from a legal standpoint these days, but you have to do it. You have to try it and try to find out exactly what am I getting here.
Yeah. And what did you find the value to be of investing that time to go out to dinner with the candidate and their spouse?
Well, you find out is the spouse enthusiastic about this person taking this job?
Yeah, I can imagine.
I can't tell you. I had 3 recruiters in my old company, and we recruited a lot of people, and we would come up with some reason to talk to the spouse. And when the spouse would say something along the lines of, "Oh man, alive! I'm going to really miss my mom. I'm an only child, and this is just killing her." You realize that this thing could go south on you in a hurry. And I've more than one time. This is the truth. More than one time, we have had the moving van pull up to the house, and the spouse said, "I just can't do it. I cannot do it. I cannot leave my mom. I cannot leave my best friend."
Yeah.
And that's the best time for it to happen.
They're not great, but there is a worse time for that to happen. And I can imagine too.
Take the job.
Yeah, especially in an executive role where we are transplanting a family and we're moving from point A. And again, to your point, it's once that is made, the amount of time that is invested to onboard and build those relationships, if it's not a fit, is just, in addition to the capital involved, just the time, energy, and attention of being that distraction is just brutal.
Bradley, let me mention one more thing about a facilitator.
Please.
A facilitator, you don't find a tremendous number of people that are not insistent in some area and not resistant in some area. They're in the middle. But I was thinking about the person that you've hired who has the 8 units of follow through and you have the 3.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you're not a gigantic company that can afford to hire all these middle people just for synergy. But when you do have polarization in a department, it's trouble. You lose efficiency. You spend a lot of time arguing or debating, what are we going to do? Who's the boss here? A facilitator can enhance the productivity of the department if you put a couple of facilitators in that operations end of the business or the administrative end of the business. They're counselors almost. How they counsel people that don't get along, or they argue, or they are at each other's throat all the time.
No, that's helpful.
Something else that was a great benefit to us.
Yeah. Well, and that has me kind of thinking too, as someone who's trying, long journey, I suppose, but trying to increase my own awareness of my own behavior and to moderate that for the good of the company and, obviously myself and my family. As someone you have been a mentor to a number of people, including my father, and I don't know anyone in this industry who has referred to someone more frequently as a mentor or a friend or someone who's just been extremely useful and helpful and generous than you. And my question, kind of with your knowledge and your experience of observing and helping other people, surely you've seen other business owners or entrepreneur types that are high in quick start. If I'm quote unquote asking for a friend here, Bill, what recommendation do you have for business owners or leaders who are high in quick start to really maybe offset some of the negative impact that comes from enjoying change? And when you say, these quick starts who are high are comfortable, moving, I'm like, yep, we packed up our family and moved from Chicago to Dallas. I thought it was great. Now there was a lot of other impact on other people. But what advice might you have for leaders who are high in quick start to really maybe be more thoughtful or be better leaders?
Well, I think if we're talking about a good sized company, a building supply business, for example, where you have 50 to 100 to 200 employees, you try to strive for synergy. And the synergy is measurable. It's not something you're guessing at. But you've got the numbers on paper and you try to get experience is the number one thing we look for in candidates for hire.
Mm-hmm.
And experience is the only thing you can teach. The only thing you can teach. Everything else is inborn. It's innate.
Mm-hmm.
And we can measure these innate characteristics. It's there. It's not going to change. None of us change. We can modify, we can use self-discipline to try to push some of our negative characteristics to the side, but they're there and they're going to stay there. By hiring by the numbers, by the book, and not getting your emotions involved, you can't completely stay devoid of emotions,
right?
But try to say, I'm looking for a candidate here. I'm not looking for a best friend.
Right.
I'm looking for someone to fill a job,
and
I want them to be gratified, and I want them to be happy in their work, feel fulfilled. I don't want them to come here and be miserable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to build a synergistic organization, and let's use the tools that are available to us. And the price is negligible.
Yeah.
To buy testing. I mean, you're talking about under $200 for 3 tests. At the beginning of a relationship, one of the things I might say is, we have a couple of tests that I think you'd find very interesting, and we might be able to give you some insight into the kind of work you'd be best at. If you want to come by, we'd love to give you the test and give you the write up and see what you think. And I'm trying to help them. I'm trying to help me.
Yeah. And we've approached it that way. And it's kind of like once you get past, we generally have a 3 interview system and then we meet face to face. So after kind of that first one, we'll say, hey, we want to make the investment into you. We're going to pay for it. We'll give it to you. Even if we're not a fit, at least you've hopefully learned something about yourself and can be more self-aware. And at least, at the end of the day, we both have to agree that we're coming together to be a good fit for you, the company, and the individual. And we've had several people that we have not hired who said, this was really interesting. I hadn't heard of any sort of cognitive index. This has been helpful and best of luck. And my thought is, yeah, for $50 and yeah, my wheels are turning on the Wonderlic test. Maybe I'll ask you that. Is it any different or is it just straight? You're just really candid and direct that, yes, we want to try to understand how intelligent you are. Do you ever run it in any rough patches or is there a way that you introduce the fact that you're doing an IQ test on a candidate?
I've almost never had anybody complain about having to take a test.
Okay.
They want the job.
Right.
It's, I don't say, this is to see if you're stupid or bright. It's a test. There's one other thing that we did that this might be another podcast, but years ago when I first started in the recruiting the search business, I was building the team. I learned about this fella. In fact, it was in Chicago. It was he was with a large corporation, and he had developed a technique for hiring, and it had to do with the interviewing process. Had nothing to do with testing. When he found a candidate, he would interview them over the telephone and tape record the interview.
Okay.
Now today, I wouldn't say tape record, but he recording the interview.
Sure.
And when you listen, and we recorded the interview with the candidate's permission.
Sure.
We didn't secretively do it, and we would listen to that interview 2 or 3 times after we had the recording.
Okay.
And you learn so much more the second and third time you listen.
Yeah.
Because when you're interviewing, you're thinking about your next question. You're not listening.
Yeah.
You're just trying to get through the interview, and having captured on some kind of electronic medium, you can really reflect on what the person's saying.
Yeah.
And when you follow up, you can ask, something you said that I've been thinking about. What did you mean by thus and so?
Yeah.
So that was invaluable to us.
Yeah.
As recruiters, we also shared that recording with our client and let the client listen to it. Do you want to invest in a airplane trip from California to Des Moines?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm thinking just the folks that we're hiring, which are generally in the Dallas Metroplex, our first several interviews, the first 3 in this most recent case, those have all been done via Zoom. So to just go to record that, obviously with their knowledge, that you have that weird voice that says, "We are recording the interview." So like they would know, but I would just say, "Hey, we use this. We generally watch this 2 or 3 times because we're trying to be really thoughtful about, who, if we're really a fit." And I can see most people, to your point, they want the job. They want to be part of it. And I think that's subtle. I think it's easy, but I think it's really smart.
Yeah, it's effective also.
Yeah.
Really effective.
I guess that's the bottom line there. It's effective. Well, Bill, I appreciate you making time for this and sharing this. And I think anything that we can do, and again, when we're not hiring nearly as many people as, to your point, some larger dealers or distributors who are hiring and have a couple hundred people there. But as important as it is these days to identify the right talent and then retain that talent to get that continuity, finding these small little ways that don't take much time, don't cost much money, but can help you find out something really valuable. And then you can kind of determine how much weight you want to apply to this. But these are kind of the little things that I think are easy to add. And as we have kind of shared them with our clients, and I know you've been doing that for decades, I think they're just little things that can help organizations improve. So appreciate you making time.
Listen, my pleasure. You anytime.
All right, friend, how did that go? Hopefully you enjoyed my conversation with Mr. Bill Lee as we were talking about the Kolbe Index. If you want to learn more, you can just look up Kolbe, Kolbe, and the assessment we use most often is the Kolbe A. That is the capital letter A. If you found value in this, please share it with your network. If you have any questions about how we utilize it, or if you have any interest in potentially utilizing this with your team, don't hesitate to email me directly at bradley@hartmanandco.com. 2 N's in Hartman. Bradley@bradleyhartmanandco.com. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Capital One Trade Credit. If you would like a customizable platform to customize your way, to make it easier for your customers to buy from you, to increase sales and delight them, well, my friend, I think you might be a candidate for partnering with Capital One Trade Credit to offer flexible credit terms to your B2B customers. That's all I've got. Thank you for listening. We're going to close out like we always do. You, my friend, are owed nothing. Deliver value first. Make it a great week.